Hey YouTube, this is Keith from the Cutlass Board Games channel. I'm joined today with Steve Dee of Tin Star Games. We're going to talk a little bit about the score and how many cards did you say was in it?
So there's 18 cards that you play with. There's 5 cards that sort of structure the deck.
Yeah, I got one of them here.
No, that's a player. That's a player.
Oh, there's a player guide.
Player guide. There's 6 of those.
Okay.
And there's 5 cards to structure the deck. So that brings us up to 29 cards.
Okay.
And if we get a stretch goal, we're going to put 7 more in so that your 18 can be varied.
Okay.
So there's 18 core cards.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit more than that in the set.
Okay. That's really funny. So, those of you watching won't know, we have a mutual friend, Alan Cheshire, and he ribs on me all the time for making 18 card games because he goes, all your problems will be solved by making and adding extra cards. And it kind of feels like you've done that here, where you've got the core game, which is the individual skills and stuff, is the 18 cards.
Yep.
But then you've got a ton of reminder cards, you've got a ton of structure cards that help you put everything together. Was there a time when you felt like you didn't need those things, and then you were like, oh, players are struggling, and you had to add it, or?
Yeah. It was actually originally designed for a contest to make a 18-card role-playing game. So originally, some of that information was on the backs of cards.
Okay.
So it worked with 18 cards, but when we started to develop it, we went, there's no reason we have to do that.
Yeah.
18 cards makes sense for some reasons. The reason that they originally is basically it's the cheapest printing set.
Yeah.
An A4 page basically has 9 cards on it, and you print double-sided. So that's why there's 54 cards in a deck, in case anyone doesn't know it there, because that's 318. So we thought it actually works better if we have just the individual cards. I can't remember, like sometime in the playtesting someone just said, why not have extra cards? And we went, yeah, that makes sense.
Just to do it.
And then we immediately went, well, we have to have player guides because we do, it's really helpful. And then we thought, well, they can be cards as well. And then we went, okay, well then in that case, we'll see if we can figure out if we can make it 36. Okay. And that's if we get the stretch goal, it'll be 36 cards, so it falls into that nice set anyway. We're billing it as an 18-card game, but it comes with a bunch of other stuff.
Interesting. So next, I've just discovered something clever you've done, is how these cards overlap a little bit.
Yes.
I thought it was miscut. It is not. If you have a look really nice and closely, I've just messed it up. There we go.
There is a slight
this.
printing error on those, though.
It does look pretty good from where I'm sitting. So it shows you how the order that it's all lined up and put together, which is pretty cool to see how it just runs on from one card to the next.
Yeah, Matt has done an incredible job. We had a great artist as well, and then Matt just really found the right vibe, and then our artist responded to that and worked in that. And we really liked the
cards.
Yeah.
So it's like a really, how would you say? Minimal's not quite right, because like for example, this one, Cheating, does have a lot going on in it.
Yeah,
but it's not overly bright or...
there's a guy whose name is, and I'll have to look, it'll come to me. He was the, I think his name is Roy Bass, and he was the designer for heaps of movie posters in the 60s and 70s.
Oh, is this the Chiaroscuro, the painting with light and shadow?
No. But he's in sort of things like the Vertigo poster is just this sort of, it's very just a couple of colors.
Okay.
Roy Bass is his name, and he did a lot of Hitchcock things, and it's just black and white or black and orange and strong silhouettes, and that was one of the things that both me and Matt love his designs.
Okay.
And so that was something we talked about earlier. I was like, maybe we can do something of that sort of style. So it's sort of minimalist, but it's also it's 4 colors or even 3 colors, and it's trying to do a lot with a little, So we have just like these little cards here for sleight of hand, and that gets a lot across. So some of the pictures are more complicated.
But it does also capture that playing card, like that one in particular. Captures that playing card style of you have the white card with the black clubs or spades and the red hearts or diamonds. And that's the entire scheme. And it actually looks really striking in some of them. I think that the parts where they've picked to use the red or the white here or there actually looks really good.
Saul Bass is his name, so not Roy. Saul Bass,
okay.
But we'll put a link to some of his work, and you'll see some of the influences there. And that also has a bit of a 1970s feel to it, which sort of recalls back to the classic heist films of that era, which we like. But yeah, it's about, the game is also very much about putting as much information across as in a simple way.
Yeah.
So this card, the card about driving is about driving any kind of vehicle you can imagine. So we've got a plane and a car and another car, just to show there's all sorts of things you can drive.
Okay.
And then there's also in the words, we say planes, trains, automobiles, even horses, because we want to give you as much flexibility as you can, but also it has to be about driving. And that was one of the key things, is that there's limitations, but there's also freedom. And that's really the core of the game, trying to make sure every card is a scene, and there are very tight limitations about what can happen, but on the other hand, everything else is open, and that we found has actually worked really well. That's the key, is that it's let people go, okay, I know, because the way it works is that instead of most role-playing games, you roll a dice to see if you succeed or fail. In this, you'll know as soon as you see the card whether you're succeeding or failing, and what kind of failure will be, and what ability you'll be using. And that means you don't have to sort of, you have that restriction. You go, okay, I know that I'm using my guns, but I'm not quite going to succeed.
Yeah.
And then you can go, okay, with that restriction, I can make up anything I want. And it actually makes it easier to create ideas, because people have got a template to work with. And that's been really, the best thing I've found is people going, I don't really normally like these kind of games because I don't have a lot of good imagination and talking. And they're going, but I was able to do it.
Yeah.
And that's really gratifying.
Because it's easy to go, well, you see the recipe before you, right? I played this once at PAX. Jonathan ran the game for me, and the kind of core theme that ran along the different beats and acts that we had was Beanie Babies. I think that was the subject of the heist. After we had successfully got them, we realized that they weren't actually the collectibles. They were actually a front for smuggling grenades or something.
Nice.
And then it suddenly became a key item in our escape. And so coming up to a section, it goes, okay, you've got this skill. For example, I'm a genius. We all knew that already, but this is what the card says. I'm now in a situation where I have to overcome this specific obstacle, like having too many Beanie Babies and our ship is sinking, which is what happened in our game. And I'm a genius. How do I do that? Then you go, okay, what to me is the center of the Venn diagram? How do I solve this problem? And I find that it's a lot less improv, where you have to come up with a lot of things. You kind of just have to come up with one way to solve one thing, which I think is not that complicated. I didn't really struggle with it. But what I did like about the game is it structures it in such a way where it goes, okay, this is the person that's spotlighted and this is the person that's talking. In my experience playing Dungeons and Dragons, when you're kind of going around the initiative turn order for something like combat, you'll have one person that's filibustering and one person that's switched off.
Yep.
And that's kind of a constant dynamic that you have as it rotates around the table, right? In this, we had one person talking and three people laughing at all times, pretty much. And it's just like so different. And like for me as a player, I skew towards light games a lot. And to go from playing something like Dungeons and Dragons, where I was super overwhelmed in my first gameplay. I picked a really goofy character. I didn't want to go through character creation properly. I literally rolled all my shit and I put it in order. And then I go, okay, that was my highest stat. That's the class I'm going to be. And like went through it all like that. And then whenever stuff would happen, I'd be like, okay, what really can I do? I'm still not fully sure what's going on. I think I have a feat that maybe applies here or whatever, and I would have to have people explain stuff to me constantly. So not like I'm the one filibustering here because I'm asking questions, I don't know what's going on. And then the other people are switched off because they already know what's going on and they're trying to figure it out. Whereas the difference was the score. Jonathan, who was running the game, literally goes, okay, this is how it goes. This is character creation. And we were like ready to go in under 10 minutes. Probably less than that in total, honestly. And so the table that we're playing with is me, my dad, and then I think it was Alan and Jonathan was playing in it with us. And so you've got 3 game devs, and my dad, who's now technically a game dev, he's working on something as well.
Nice.
All who are people are relatively in the know in RPG space, board game space, or whatever. So you'd think that we'd get onto it pretty quickly compared to the average person, but me getting onto D&D was really hard. But then me getting onto the score was instant. I had all my skills written down straight away. I knew exactly what my character could do. I knew exactly the space that I operated in. I knew the kind of jokes that I wanted to be telling. Because my character was guns, finger guns. And I thought that was really funny to like run down that track as a tangent. And we get into the first scene. We hit our key item, which is the Beanie Babies, and we're able to riff on that every single time, every single act. How does this object impact us? And it was so easy to tell stories around knowing that we had the common theme, or the island-based location tells us, okay, are we interacting with the mountain? Are we interacting with the water? We had a ship. Okay, what is the ship doing? How does that interact with the people at the base? And it was so easy to keep the game going and flowing that it didn't feel like we had anyone at any time sitting there checking their phone or going, actually, what can I do? Because you're told as it comes around, it goes, okay, who's the genius here? And you're like, oh, I'm the genius, that's me. And you go, okay, this is what the genius does. And like you're called on. Also, everyone gets like an equal time to talk. There's no quarterbacking. There's no one guy that's like, oh, actually, that's a +1 or whatever, you know. And I felt that it was really easy to do more role-playing stuff. And because it wasn't necessarily role-playing as in I am my character doing a thing. It was collaborative storytelling role-playing. Which is kind of like third person of the same kind of category, as opposed to mechanically playing the game, where a lot of RPGs get bogged down. I was talking about my experience with the score and how that compared to D&D as a huge build-up, because I wanted to ask you, how does your experience with other traditional role-playing games, and for example, coming off the back of Relics, made you be able to build something much smaller and condensed like this?
Look, I've been designing role-playing games and playing role-playing games for 30 years or something. And part of that has me been trying to sort of really study the experience and try to synthesize it down to what are the really cool things that happen at a table. The thing about Dungeons & Dragons is that it was originally invented partly from a war game, and Gary Gygax actually said later that what he was kind of thinking was more like a game like Diablo. Like as soon as computers came along, they were doing that kind of thing. It was designed to be a simulation of people playing a character trying to overcome obstacles. It's a tactical war game, effectively, at the singular person level. And people have developed it to be this wonderful improv exercise, but trying to adapt it to fit. And a lot of traditional games have really taken that same approach. You really are building something with stats and trying to overcome obstacles. And I have recently just been trying to go, how do we go back to first principles and go, what do we want to happen at the table? We want to share time. We want to have a strong character. We want to, as you say, have key pass ideas around to each other. And we want to, get really strong hooks in story that we can tell really quickly. And so, partly the score was a bit of a surprise because it just came out really fast like that. But I think years of trying to focus on that was leading up to this, that was when we knew that we had something really special with the score, because it wasn't just looking at some of the other games that people came up with for the 18 card thing. This felt very different, and it really was solving that problem, like going down as what do we actually want to happen at the table, and as a result, I've been talking to people about it. It is a role-playing game of sorts, but it comes at it from a very different direction. And that is just changing how people are reacting to it. They don't feel like it's a role-playing game. And it is a little bit in the third person, but you still get that sense of, I'm telling a story. And you lose a little bit of the sort of, you can't quite get the same intensity of not knowing what's going to happen because you aren't really in a first person getting things delivered to you. But I think there are actually computer games that do that better in many cases, where you have that sense of, I was playing Last of Us and I was so sad because my character did this, and or whatever it is, I built a character in Neverwinter Nights or something, or in Skyrim, and I did all this with them. Computer games can actually do some of that better, and what we can do at the table is these interesting, structured, shared improv activities with lots of prompts. And in many cases, that's what we do when we make characters. Sometimes we get a lot of tables in a book, and they throw ideas at us, and we go, this is a really cool idea. So that's sort of where it began. It's like, I really like that part of character generation. How do we do that for the whole game? How do we just go, I reached into the book and I got some cool ideas, and I thought, well, what if the cards were doing that every single scene? Yeah, and I've been really pleased by the fact that people have said the same things you have, that it doesn't feel like another role-playing game. It doesn't feel like the huge onboarding. I mean, that is the biggest problem with most role-playing games is they're like, hey, yeah, everyone knows how to role-play. It's just like playing pretend. Here's a series of books. Each book is this thick. Go away and read them. I mean, and you have most people, they don't bother to read them. They just go, well, tell me what to do on my turn.
Like me.
And I'll look at my character sheet says I can, do some stabbing things, but we're in the middle of role-playing. And again, it's like that, they don't quite fit. So yeah, it's really about going back to first principles and trying to design really interesting storytelling mechanics. And I don't think there is much like it out there. And I'm really hoping people will reevaluate what RPGs can be and what storytelling experiences can be.
Okay. On that, let's make a character right now.
Sure.
Now, if I remember, I get 4 cards.
It depends on the number of players.
Depends on the number of players.
So that also shares spotlight. So if we were playing with 3 characters, it would be 4 characters each, 4 cards each. So you would just shuffle this up, and we can deal you 4 characters, 4 cards.
All right.
There you go.
3, 4. Okay.
And
So my character now.
you also get these cards that are multi-purpose because the top and the bottom help
Yeah.
you get an idea of what you're going to steal and from
From
where.
memory, yeah, the top one is the thing you're trying to steal.
Yep.
The bottom one is the location. So on this card, I've got Bank Vault and Gold Bullion, and the skill is hacking. So this character that I have here is good at hacking, cheating, stage magic, and disguise. Now you can see how some of these might overlap a little bit. Like stage magic and disguise might give me a performer kind of a background. And cheating, as you can see here in the icon, has horse racing and gambling, which means I might be from Las Vegas.
Yeah,
right?
Las Vegas magician. Perfect.
Where I moonlight in some kind of a technical thing. Maybe my show in Vegas has some kind of a digital aspect to it, which has led me to being good at hacking. And now, just these 4 things, these prompts, so to say, inform me just by looking at the center of the Venn diagram with 2 or 3 of these things. It gives me a kind of idea of what my character's like. And then I now have to figure out how that stage magician, I guess if that's my primary identity, right? That stage magician is going to interact with the heist. Am I going to make the bank vault disappear? Or what's the, in Now You See Me, I'm going to teleport you into the bank, you're going to take as many bills as you can, then we're going to teleport you back here. Maybe it goes down and something like that. But that was literally creating a character in less than a minute.
Yep.
We're already. I just haven't named him, and we're already pretty much there. Right?
Yeah, exactly. I've got assistants, like lots of people who come and help me. I've also got history, which is background with people, and I've got signals, which is the person who's always on the walkie-talkies or the communication system. So obviously I'm just someone who knows everyone and is great at coordinating them, which also fits with genius. So I'm some really sort of just mass person. It makes me think of Global Frequency with the Warren Ellis comic, where there's one person who's connected to all the people on the frequency. So I'm thinking about that character, and she online and just calls up everyone. Right, we need one person for this, one person for that, and that's going to be a lot of fun to play out and just see how these things. And of course, some of the things are going to go wrong, but that's actually really good character building as well. When you go, we had a history together, but now you're betraying me. That makes a great moment. And that's also part of the fun is that when you know you can fail, you are actually more free to experiment. Because what happens too often in traditional role-playing game is you only have one character, and you don't want it to die. So you're always like, well, should I open this chest? The GM could kill me, or should I go in that room?
Yeah.
So you're actually discouraged from having adventures in some way. And there's a tension there, whereas this is, this lets you just sort of go, whether you're succeeding or failing, expound on that, and there's no pressure. And that again, lets people have fun.
Well, I wanted to, off the back of your character, you can see that my character and your character very happily occupy very different niches, and skill sets, obviously based on the skills that we drew, but occupy very different parts of the party. In something like Dungeons and Dragons, you could rock up with 4 clerics because the new book came out and said cleric is busted right now, or something like that. And the other thing that you said about being action averse, which traditionally I am very action averse. Because I get anxious about everything. I'm worried about what's going to happen to me and my character. Playing Dungeons and Dragons, my plan was like, no, I'm going to play it as if I've never read a D&D meme before. I've never heard anything about it. I'm the barbarian. I'm going to kick down every door. I'm going to touch every trap thing and everything like that. It didn't go too terribly, but I think that kind of play style, I'm not really that worried about what's going to happen because I know it'll be fun and exciting, is something that I had to bring.
Yeah.
I had to bring with me there, and I had to acknowledge the risks and problems that was going to bring. Playing the score, I can be like, I'm just going to do that, but I already know how big or bad the risk is going to be. Okay, we just win. Okay, I get to be extra ridiculous and whatever, because my job as the player at the table is to try and encourage as much fun and excitement amongst the other players, and same for them. Whereas when you have the DM's like, oh, I have to do this, or I'm managing this particular player, or I'm dealing with this particular thing, and it feels so much more encompassing and things that you have to worry about and things that you have to, rather than the score, which feels like distilled fun. We go, this is the exact experience that we wanted. This is the exact thing that we're narrowing down into. This is the thing that we care about. And I think that's what makes the game special. Because normally I'm a light gamer. I don't want to have to play the big complicated thing, read all 100 different books, because that stresses me out. Because I either have to know everything or nothing. And the score is instant. Like, it's so easy to pick up and play. And I think that's why it is worth checking out. It is on Kickstarter, but I'm going to let Steve do all the plugs here through where we can find all the stuff.
So we are launching Thursday at 8 p.m. That's Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time, AEDT as they call it. So that's 8 p.m., which is about 48 hours from, it's 48 hours from when we're recording this, but when this goes up. There'll be links down there. You can also check us out at tinstargames.com. There's a link there that'll take you straight to the Kickstarter as well. And follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok with Tinstar Games pretty much everywhere. Tinstar Games with a 1 on Twitter for very silly reasons. But otherwise, Tinstar Games everywhere else. We'd love to have you on the campaign. And you can also, we have the full print and play game, like the beta version, freely available. Doesn't matter, even if you haven't pledged.
That's what I have.
Yeah, so you can find out exactly if you want to play the game. You can print it out, try it with your friends. What you get is the full glossy version if you back it, whether that's the print and play or the physical copy, which we're going to make as pretty as we possibly can, but still it's going to fit in the palm of your hand.
All right. Is it from us. Steve and I are longtime friends working together in this industry. And I'm actually really excited to be able to showcase some of his stuff because we've collabed on a whole bunch of stuff before. And I'm really excited to see the score come out. I'm going to be getting my own copy and hopefully you guys will be excited to do the same. But that is it from us. If you want to check out some other stuff on the channel, we do have a whole bunch of other board game content that is worth checking out. I'll put some buttons up here to have a look and check out those links in the description to have a look at the score or check out some of the other stuff that Tinstar Games has made. I'm a big fan of There's Been a Murder. That's a murder mystery game, right? So thanks for hanging out with us for this 20 minutes or so, and hopefully we'll see you in the next thing.